I kept scanning the crowd, row after row of proud parents. Smiling siblings and clapping hands blurred together like a watercolor painting. My name was about to be called. The faculty lined the stage in their maroon gowns, and the air buzzed with excitement. Some people were crying, some were already on FaceTime with relatives abroad. I just kept looking for one person, my dad. He promised nothing could keep me from your graduation. "Sweetheart," he said just a week ago, his voice light, distracted, like he was answering emails while talking to me. "Front row, I'll be there." I had saved him a seat right in the center where he could see me walk across the stage. I imagined him standing and clapping loudest, shouting, "That's my girl." I imagined him holding up a bouquet of flowers, maybe even crying. I know dads don't cry often, but maybe he would. My name echoed through the speaker. Ava Marie Thompson, Bachelor of Communications, summa cum laude. People clapped. I stood. My legs felt heavier than they should. It wasn't nerves, it was disappointment, thick and cold. I walked, I smiled, and when I looked into the crowd, the chair I had reserved was still empty. It wasn't the first time. I had hoped too hard for something from my dad. After they divorce, he slowly faded from my life like the last bars of a sad song. At first, he was around every weekend, then every other, then holidays, if that. His new wife, Sandra, came into the picture when I was 14. She was tall, blonde, and smiled with too many teeth. Her daughter, Lily, was 3 years younger than me and already a ballerina with a YouTube channel and 1,000 followers before she hit puberty. Dad called her Princess. He used to call me Champ. Guess you stop needing a champion when you have a princess. I remember the first time I noticed it. We were all at a family dinner. And I told him I'd won first place in the district speech contest. He smiled politely, but cut me off to show everyone a video of Lily's recital. I clapped for her too. But inside, something went quiet. After the graduation ceremony, I walked out with the crowd. Balloons were floating and people were hugging. My best friend's mom took a picture of us together, and when she asked where my parents were, I mumbled, "My mom's at work." My dad had something come up. It wasn't a lie. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my cousin Katie. "Ken, you believe Uncle James missed your big day for a third-grade ballet recital?" Attached was a photo. My dad was sitting in a folding chair in a school gymnasium, holding a bouquet of pink roses. Sandra was next to him, wearing pearls. Lily was on stage in a sparkly tutu, doing a twirl. I couldn't breathe. The walk back to my apartment was only 15 minutes. But that day it felt like hours. My cap bobbed in my hand. My gown was wrinkled from sitting. The diploma folder dug into my fingers like a paper brick. It started raining. Of course it did. It's one of those soft, cold drizzles that makes the world look sadder than it already feels. I didn't run. I let it soak me, like the universe was washing off the last bit of hope I'd held for him. I got home and dropped everything by the door. My small living room, still half-packed from finals, looked dim, despite the sunlight trying to fight through gray clouds. I sat on the floor, wet, cold, alone. My phone buzzed again. "Dad, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Something came up with Lily. We're so proud of you. Hope you had fun. Let's do dinner soon." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I turned off my phone. I don't know how long I sat there. At some point, I got up and peeled off my soaked clothes, replaced them with an old hoodie, and made a cup of tea I didn't really want. I stood by the window watching the world. Carry-on cars passing, birds diving into puddles, strangers laughing under umbrellas. Everyone seemed to have somewhere to go, someone to go to, except me. All I wanted today was to see my father's face in the crowd. Just that. But he was in a different crowd for a different daughter. That night I opened my journal. The one I started freshman year when the world felt wide and full of possibility. I wrote, "He missed my beginning." But maybe he's not supposed to be in the rest of my story. I didn't cry. I was tired of crying over people who didn't show up. From that moment on, I promised myself something. If he ever wanted to see me again, he'd have to buy a ticket to my next graduation, or my next success, or my next life. And those seats, they'd be standing room only. I didn't check my phone the next day or the day after that. I told myself I was just busy soaking in the moment. But the truth was uglier. I didn't. Want to read another half-hearted excuse? Or worse, a voicemail where he called me sweetheart, like the word still meant something. Mom came home late from her shift the next evening, still in her scrubs and carrying a grocery bag. Her face lit up when she saw my diploma sitting proudly on the dining table. "You did it," she whispered, setting everything down to hug me. "I did," I said, holding on a little longer than usual. She didn't ask why my mascara was still smeared or why I hadn't posted any graduation pictures. She didn't ask where my dad was either. She knew better than to pick a scab still bleeding underneath. Instead, she made my favorite Alfredo pasta with too much cheese, and we had a mini celebration, just the two of us. She even brought out the candles she usually saved for birthdays, and stuck one in a cupcake from the store. "To my brilliant daughter," she said, raising her glass of cheap sparkling water. "To the woman who did it all on her own," I replied, clinking mine against hers. Later that night, I caved and opened my phone. 17 missed calls, 6 voicemails, 12 unread messages, all from Dad. Some were short, "Call me when you can, kiddo." I would have come if I could. Others were longer, guiltier. Sandra didn't want to make a big deal out of it, but Lily's recital was a competition this time. She was being judged for a scholarship, even tried. To make it about me, I didn't want to bring any negative energy to your big day. I know things have been tense lately. Tense. I laughed out loud. You leave your daughter on the most important day of her life and then call things tense. That's not tension. That's abandonment with good PR. I scrolled through the photos. He'd sent Lily in a pink sequin dress holding a plastic trophy. Him smiling proudly. Sandra kissing Lily's forehead. Everyone in matching lavender outfits. I wanted to throw the phone across the room instead. I saved the photo, not out of love but as a reminder. A week passed before he showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was sitting on the couch in pajamas, rewatching The Devil Wears Prada for the 100th time. When I heard the knock, I opened the door and there he was in his usual navy blazer. Hair too neatly combed, with that same "I come in peace" look he wore every time he forgot something important. "Ava," he said, like my name was something he wasn't sure he still had the right to say. I didn't speak. I brought food," he said, holding up a brown bag from that Thai place he knew I liked. "I already ate." He paused. "Can I come in?" I shrugged and stepped aside. He sat at the edge of the couch like it might bite him. I stayed standing. The silence between us grew so thick it could have drowned an army. "I messed up," he said quietly. "You think?" He looked up at me, but I didn't flinch. "You have every right to be angry." I was torn that day, Ava. I really was. "No, you weren't." My voice was sharper now. "You made a choice. You just didn't think I'd care this much." He blinked. I think he expected tears, but I didn't cry anymore. Not for him. "You didn't just miss a ceremony," I continued. "You missed closure. You missed sitting in the audience after everything we've been through. You missed the look on my face when I made it, despite every reason not to." "Ava, I love you." "You love Lily more." His eyes widened. "That's not true." "No." I raised my eyebrows. "You gave her a front row seat. You gave her flowers. You gave her presents. What did you give me, Dad? An excuse and a voicemail." He opened his mouth but closed it again. "I don't need a dad who shows up with takeout after a tragedy," I said, my voice shaking now. "I need a dad who shows up before the wound happens, who stands by me when it matters. And you haven't been that man in years." "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "But you did?" I whispered. He stood, unsure of what to do next. "What can I do to fix this?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man who used to carry me on his shoulders at the zoo. The man who missed dance recitals and field days, and now my graduation. You don't get to fix this with pad thai and pity, I said softly. You fix it by doing the work, by showing up consistently. Not just when the guilt gets loud. I'll try, he said. I'll believe it when I see it. He nodded, defeated. Okay? And just like that, he left. I stood by the door for a long time after it closed. Later, I opened the food and ate it alone. It was still warm, but I couldn't taste anything. All I could think about was how much of my life I had spent begging for scraps of affection from a man who only ever gave me crumbs. But something in me shifted that night. I realized I didn't want to keep waiting for someone who only showed up to apologize for being late instead of being on time for once in his life. The next day, I applied for a graduate fellowship abroad. It was a long shot, but it felt like the right kind of distance, and if he ever showed up again, he'd have to board a plane and sit in the audience of my world. Not the other way around. Because I was done auditioning for the love I should have been given freely. I didn't expect him to call again. Not after I told him the truth, the kind that scorches bridges and singes any rope still dangling between two people. But he did. A week later, during my internship orientation, my phone buzzed with his name. I stared at it. I didn't pick. Not the first time. Not the second. Not even the third. He left a voicemail. Hey, it's me. I'm at your old high school. Don't ask why. I think I just needed to be in a place where you were still smiling at me. Anyway, I'll keep trying. Just take care, kiddo. That word again, kiddo. He always used it when he didn't know what else to say. Days passed, and slowly, life tried to resume its rhythm. I started waking up earlier, eating meals without scrolling through old texts, laughing at random TikToks my best friend sent me. I was rebuilding. One evening, Mom and I sat on the balcony, sipping iced tea under the fading sunset. I had just told her about the scholarship. I was applying for a competitive graduate program in London when she leaned back and said something that made my throat tighten. Your father called me, she said gently. I raised an eyebrow. He didn't ask for anything. Just wanted to know how you were. Did you tell him? She paused. I told him you're learning to live without him. I blinked hard at the horizon. And what did he say? That he deserved it. Silence. 2 days later, I got a lettera, real one, envelope postage stamp. His handwriting inside was a single sheet of paper. No grand speech, no rehearsed apology, just this. Dear Ava, I clapped for Lily at her recital, but I wasn't clapping for her. I was clapping because I was trying to pretend I wasn't thinking of you. I failed. I've been failing for years. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I hope one day, when you're standing on another stage and you hear clapping, maybe you'll imagine mine in there somewhere. Dad, I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it up and tucked it inside the back of my journal, not as a keepsake, but as a receipt. That weekend, I went out with my friend Tara, someone who always knew how to cheer me up with bubble tea and brutal honesty, as we walked past a bookstore downtown. I noticed a poster in the window, local youth recital featuring dancers from across the state. I smiled faintly. Tara noticed. What? Nothing, I said. Just familiar vibes. She nodded. You okay? I took a breath. I think I'm getting there. That night, I stayed up late working on my graduate statement of purpose. Instead of writing about awards or GPAs, I told them about disappointment, about abandonment, about rebuilding, and how it taught me to create stability for others. I ended it with a line I hadn't expected to write. Some people get clapped for at every step. Others have to learn how to clap for themselves. I'm one of the latter. A week later, the acceptance letter came. Full scholarship. London. Next semester. I stared at the email, rereading it at least 5 times before letting out the breath I didn't know I was holding. Mom screamed. She danced. She cried. We went out for dinner that night. Celebrated for real this time. No candles and cupcakes. No sadness tucked behind tight smiles. I almost didn't tell him. Almost, but a day before my flight, I sent him a text. I got into the grad program. Leaving for London on Thursday. Thought you should know. I didn't expect a reply, but this time I got one. I'm proud of you. I hope they see what I missed. Always clapping. Dad, no more excuses, no more pretending. Just 7 words that didn't fix anything but didn't break anything either. On the day of my departure, I stood at the airport with a carry-on and 2 books tucked under my arm, both gifts. From Mom. She hugged me tight, whispering things like, "Don't trust tap water. And remember to call me even if it's 3 a.m. Then she added, "If you ever need to come home, ... I'll be waiting." I smiled, kissed her cheek, and walked toward the gate. Just as I reached security, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned. It was him, out of breath, alone. No flowers. No big speech, just ... him. He didn't ask for a hug. He didn't try to stop me. He just looked at me, eyes a little red, voice quiet. "Have a safe flight, Ava." I nodded. "Thanks." And for the first time, I saw regret, not as a performance, but as a quiet truth sitting in his eyes. I walked away this time. He didn't follow. And for the first time, that was okay. The first night in London was everything. And nothing I expected. The rain was soft, like a whispered apology from the sky. And the city buzzed with people who didn't know me or my story. That part felt freeing. The other part, the empty part, echoed more than ever. I unpacked in silence, arranging books on my tiny dorm shelf, pinning up a photo of Mom and me at my graduation, the one where she's holding my hand tightly and smiling through. Mascara-streaked cheeks. Next to it, I placed the letter from Dad. Not as a tribute. Just a reminder that people are human, that sometimes they leave, and sometimes they look back too late. Classes started. And for the first time in months, my world wasn't about grief or old wounds. It was lectures, coffee-fueled nights, and friends who laughed loud and loved fast. I met Naomi, my roommate from Kenya, who could find joy in anything, even burnt toast. And Jack, who had a laugh that shook the walls and a kindness that didn't demand attention. They didn't know my past. So when they asked, "What made you want to study here?" I smiled and said, "I wanted to rebuild myself somewhere the wreckage wouldn't follow." They understood in the way only strangers turned family do. One night, after a stressful project, Jack handed me his phone. "Play something. Anything. That reminds you of home." I hesitated. Then I played an old song, one my dad used to hum when we drove to school. I hadn't heard it in years, and as it played, memories poured in like unwelcome guests. Jack leaned back and said softly, "Who used to sing that to you?" "My father," I said without thinking. He nodded, understanding more than I'd said. "Still around?" I paused. "In the world, yeah. In my life, not so much." Jack didn't ask more. He didn't need to. Weeks passed, fall turned to winter, and I changed not into someone new, but into someone, who knew her worth didn't need permission or proof. Until one evening, a message shattered that peace. It was from Lily. Yes, her. "Hi, Ava. You don't know me. I mean, not really. I know about you. Dad talks about you more than he talks to you. I found your speech from graduation. You were amazing. I'm sorry. For everything, I hope we meet someday, Lily." Froze. This girl, the reason he missed my day was reaching out, not with cruelty or comparison, but kindness. And I hated that I couldn't hate her. I didn't reply at first, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know what version of me should respond. The bitter one. The healed one. The girl I used to be. Instead, I stared at her message for 3 days. Then I wrote back, "Lily, you don't owe me anything. You didn't choose the timing. You didn't make him miss my day. I did a lot of healing to stop hating you. And I'm glad you wrote. Take care of him. He doesn't always show it, but I think he tries." I hit send, cried harder than I had in months, then went for a walk. The wind was sharp that night. I didn't mind because, for the first time, the hurt didn't control me. It simply walked beside me. Quieter now. Finals came. I aced most. Struggled with a few, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't since before the whole two families. Then. One day, a familiar name popped into my email. Dad. Proud of you. I opened it with a steady breath. Hi, Kiddo. Just wanted to say I read your published paper. You've become everything we always knew you could. I know I don't deserve updates, but I check the school blog every week, hoping to see your name. I saw it today. You make me proud. Ava, I'll always be clapping for you, even if it's from far away. No ask, no apology, just words. Real ones. I didn't write back, but printed it, taped it beside my desk. Not for him, for me. Because sometimes forgiveness isn't a gift. For the other person. It's a release for yourself. And I was tired of carrying rage like armor. Naomi noticed it one night. She smiled. Is that him? I nodded. She asked, still mad? I thought for a moment. Then shook my head. Not mad. I said, just done waiting for things he'll never be. A few months later, I stood on a new stage, this time in London, another graduation. But this time, I wasn't scanning the crowd for someone who might not show. I was clapping for myself, and I heard it, not actual sound, but something like an echo of someone somewhere whispering, "That's my kiddo." And maybe that was enough. Maybe it always had been. There's something about the second graduation that felt quieter, not in sound. No, there were cheers, loud applause, families, waving flowers and flashing cameras. But in my world, it was quiet, not lonely, just settled. When my name was called Ava Mitchell, Master of Political Theory, I walked across the stage with my head high and my heart steady. No scanning the crowd. No hunting for a face that used to mean everything. Mom couldn't fly out. But we FaceTimed later. Her smile bigger than any city skyline behind me and beside her on that tiny screen. A chair. Empty. I think I stared at it longer than I should have. That night, the university held a dinner, something elegant and over the top. I wore a red dress. I'd bought it the day after Dad's letter because I promised myself that the next time I wore something new, it'd be for me. Jack came with me, no longer just the funny classmate with warm eyes and an easy laugh. We weren't officially dating, but there were moments where his gaze lingered, and I let mine do the same. At the dinner, someone gave a speech about gratitude for family, and I felt a familiar twist in my chest. Jack noticed. Want to step out? He whispered. I nodded. We found a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The lights shimmered like promises, full of life, full of things that could be. I always imagined he'd come. I admitted. Jack didn't say anything. He just stood beside me, hands in his pockets, eyes on the horizon. You know, I added, I used to think, if I became successful enough, rich enough, famous enough, he'd look at me and regret everything, that he'd say sorry, that he'd show up. Jack turned to me, and now I just hope I never make my own child feel what I felt, I said quietly. That's silence again. But it was warm this time. Then he said, you won't. You're the kind of woman who'd show up even if the sky was falling. The next morning, I received a package. No return address. Inside. A photo meet from my graduation. It's taken from the crowd, not a press shot. Not one I recognized. It was a little blurry, but undeniably real. Tucked inside the envelope was a note. I was there, far back. Didn't want to ruin your day with my presence, but I've never missed a second chance to watch you win. Love, Dad. My fingers trembled, so he came. Just didn't let me see him. Was that enough? Did it change anything? Maybe. Not maybe everything. I showed Naomi the photo. She didn't say much, just hugged me. Then asked, are you okay? And surprisingly, I was, because even though I had spent years begging for his presence, maybe now, I didn't need it. I'd filled the gap with my own strength. And maybe that was the real graduation. A week later, I flew home. Mom met me at the airport with tears in her eyes and the proudest smile. I missed you, baby. Missed you. More. We drove home in silence, music playing softly. And for once, it wasn't painful. It was peaceful. In my old room. Things were just how I'd left them, except one new addition, a framed photo of me at graduation next to it. Another frame. This one held the blurry shot. The one from the crowd. Mom must have added it after I sent it to her. She placed them side by side, and suddenly my past and present stood together. That weekend, we visited Grandma's grave. I stood beside Mom, flowers in hand, and whispered everything I hadn't said out loud in years. I wish you could have seen me, I told her. I wish you could have been there, but somehow think you were. The wind blew gently, and in it I heard something, not words, but warmth. Back home, I received another message from Lily. He talks about you like you're a superhero. Says no one fights harder. I think he regrets it all. Just thought you should know. I stared at it, then replied, "Tell him, I'm okay, and I forgive him, but I'm not waiting anymore." She replied with a heart emoji. Simple, but somehow it closed a door I didn't realize was still open. The next night, Jack called. "Got something to tell you," he said. "Remember that NGO project I applied for?" "Yeah, I got it, but it's in Kenya. 6 months. My heart dropped. Just a little. Then I smiled. "Jack, that's amazing. It'll change lives." He paused. "You changed mine, Ava." There was a beat. Then I said, "Go do great things. I'll be here doing mine." Sometimes love doesn't have to be about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go beautifully. Just like I did with my father. Just like doing now. Because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet step forward. A red dress on graduation night. A blurry photo from the crowd. A soft goodbye before a new hello. I didn't expect the envelope. It came a month after graduation. Thick, ivory-colored, sealed with gold embossing. Inside, a formal invitation. "You are cordially invited to the mid-year parent recognition ceremony at Claire's Academy of Ballet, featuring Lily Mitchell, soloist. My breath caught. Lily. His real daughter. The one he stayed for. The one he chose." The envelope didn't have a return address, but I didn't need one. The handwriting was enough, slanted. Sharp. His no note. No apology. Just an invite. A silent offering. Or maybe a test. And stupidly, I debated going. Naomi's voice came through the phone like a sledgehammer. "You are not going." I stayed quiet. "Ava, what would you even say to them?" "You'll just sit there, invisible again." I didn't answer right away. "I think I need to see it for myself," I whispered. "I need to see who he stayed for. Maybe it'll help me understand." There was silence. Then a sigh. "Okay, but you don't go alone." I flew out to. Days later, rented a simple hotel. Dressed in quiet, neutral colors. No makeup. No statement pieces. Just me. I arrived at the venue 10 minutes early. The lobby was already buzzing. Proud parents, excited chatter. Little girls in tutus skipping past velvet ropes. And then I saw him. Dad. Gray at the temples now. Slimmer, but still with that same awkward posture and faint frown lines. Next to him stood Lily, beaming in a white ballet outfit, clutching her flowers like they were magic. She was beautiful. Bright. Innocent. My chest ached with something I didn't quite recognize. Not jealousy. Not rage. Grief, maybe. For what I never got to be. They hadn't seen me. I stood at the far edge of the room, partly hidden behind a column. But someone else saw me. Claire. His wife. She stiffened, her eyes narrowing before she walked toward me with sharp pointed heels and a forced smile. "Ava," she said coolly. "Claire," I replied. "I wasn't sure you'd come. You invited me." Technically, he did. I told him it was a bad idea. I raised an eyebrow. "Still controlling the guest list, huh?" Her smile didn't move. "Look, I know you and your father have history, but this is Lily's day." I nodded slowly. "And no one ruins Lily's day?" I know. That's why I'm here quietly. No scene, no drama. Claire folded her arms. So why come at all? I looked her squarely in the eyes because I'm tired of ghosts and pretending. I want to see what he gave up everything. Else for then, maybe. I'll stop wondering. She didn't have a reply for that. She just turned and walked away. The performance was breathtaking. Lily twirled and danced like sunlight, Grace wrapped in motion. She smiled throughout, clearly looking for one face in the crowd. His, and he gave it to her, every clap, every teary-eyed grin. Every flash of the camera. He looked proud, genuinely, deeply proud. Just like I used to imagine he might look at me. And then, it happened. She pointed to the crowd at him and said loud and clear, "That's my dad. He's my hero." The audience awed and laughed. My heart cracked, but I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just sat there, silent, still. After the show, I slipped outside before the crowd poured out, but somehow he found me. He walked up, hesitant. The lines on his face deeper now. His voice softer. "You came," he said. "I did. I didn't think you would. You sent the invitation." He scratched the back of his neck. "I wanted you to see that she's special." I turned to face him fully. So was I. He didn't answer. "She still is," I added. "But I was, too. You just didn't stay long enough to find out." "I know," he murmured, and I could tell for the first time in years he wasn't defending himself. Not justifying, just accepting. "I watched your graduation," he said. "I took that photo. I wanted to come closer, but what?" I cut in. He swallowed. "I didn't think I deserved to." I paused. "Maybe you didn't, but I deserved to know you were trying." We stood there in silence. The sound of laughter, applause, and a child's voice echoing behind us. "I didn't invite you here to hurt you," he said. "Didn't." "You?" I asked, eyes narrowing. "Or was this one last attempt to show me what I'm not?" "No, I just wanted to share something good with someone I still care about." I stared at him, and for a moment I saw him, not the father who left, not the man who ran, but just a man, flawed, aging, regretful, dash. "I forgive you," I said, finally. He looked up, startled. But I added, "Forgiveness doesn't mean I need you, or that I'll ever call again." He nodded slowly. "I understand." I turned to walk away. Ava stopped. "If I wrote sometimes, would that be okay?" I thought about it, then shrugged. "Maybe just don't expect answers." He nodded, and I walked away. At the hotel, I collapsed on the bed, fully clothed. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, mind still echoing with Lily's voice. "He's my hero." And then I smiled, not bitterly, just honestly, because maybe now I knew he was someone's hero, just not mine. And that was okay because I'd become my own. I thought closure would come with the conversation, that after confronting him, I'd feel lighter, but instead felt something stranger, emptiness. Not the kind that aches, the kind that whispers, "You're done." When I got home, I found my graduation cap still sitting on my nightstand, untouched since that day. I picked it up, ran my fingers over the gold tassel, and stared at the empty space where a family should have sat cheering. No one clapped for me. No one cried when I walked across that stage. No camera flashes, no flowers, just one girl alone in her success, and yet I still did it. A few days later, I got a message from Lily. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but it was definitely her. "Hi, Ava. I know this might be weird. I got your contact from Dad's phone. I hope that's okay." I stared at it for hours before replying. "Hey, that's okay. What's up?" I wanted to say I saw you in the audience. "And I think you're really brave for coming." I blinked. "Brave," she continued. "I know I'm younger and I don't understand everything, but I know Dad messed up. He's tried to be a good dad to me. I don't know what he was to you. But I hope someday, We can talk more. I'd like that. She was 12 years old and somehow more emotionally aware than the adults who raised her. I typed back, "Thank you, Lily. That means more than you know. Maybe someday we can talk. But not yet." Okay. Okay, I smiled. Genuinely. 4. The first time in weeks. It was a strange time after that. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't hopeful either. It was like floating in that strange space between letting go and moving on. One morning, while going through a box of old papers and pictures, I found a file marked Ava's Achievements. It was filled with certificates, honor rolls, debate competitions, writing contests, things I didn't even remember, but someone had kept them. Mom. Flipped to the back and found a note in her handwriting. "She shines even when no one's clapping." Tears stung my eyes. Mom always said that when I felt invisible. And somehow, even in her absence, she'd found a way to remind me. I mattered. I decided to start a journal. A real one, no filters. No performative gratitude. It's just me and my thoughts. And I wrote, I wanted him to clap. I really did. I used to dream about it my name called, his voice louder than the rest, shouting, "That's my daughter." But life doesn't always give us what we dream. Sometimes it gives us what we need to grow. And what I needed wasn't his validation. It was the strength to stop chasing it. Weeks passed. I started teaching part-time creative writing to high school seniors. On the first day, one of the girls asked me, "Miss Mitchell, what made you become a writer?" I paused, then smiled, because I grew up learning that words could hurt, but they could also heal. She nodded, scribbling something in her notebook. And just like that, I realized I was becoming the kind of adult I once needed. On a quiet Saturday, I got another envelope. Not from him, from Lily. Inside, a photographed daughter in her dance costume and written on the back, in her neat little handwriting, "To Ava who shines even when no one's clapping. Love, Lily." I sat on the floor. Holding the photo, a rush of warmth spread through me. Not because it was from Dad, not because I had a sister now, but because someone saw me, really saw me, and chose to say it out loud. That night, I lit a small candle. In front of Mom's photo, I made it, I whispered. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but I made it. The flame flickered gently. I imagined her smiling, arms crossed like she used to when I said something dramatic. "You always did," she'd say. "Even when he didn't watch, you kept going." I took a breath, closed my eyes, and let that truth settle. Later, as I packed up some old boxes, I came across a dusty shelf of childhood trophies. Swimming medals, spelling bee plaques. None of which Dad ever showed up to. And for a second, I thought about boxing them up and sending them to him. A final petty jab. "Here's what you missed." But then I laughed. Trophies don't prove anything, not to me. Not anymore. He can keep the recitals. He can keep the flowers. He can keep the title of hero in Lily's story. Because in mine, I'm the one who showed up, who clapped when no one else did, who stood tall at graduation, fatherless, but not broken. And that girl, she doesn't need a spotlight anymore. She became one. I never imagined the silence in my life could be so peaceful. Not empty, not bitter, just quiet after everything that happened with Dad. It's with Lily, with that cursed graduation day. I thought the pain would stick to me like gum under a desk. But time, as it turns out, doesn't heal everything. It just helps you build new things around the wounds. I spent that summer in a new rhythm, waking up without anxiety. Journaling over coffee, teaching my writing students how to give life to their emotions on the page. Some of them still didn't know where a semicolon goes. But when they wrote about their parents, their dreams, their loneliness, I saw myself in their words. And that made me feel useful. Whole one evening, I was sitting in the tiny balcony of my apartment, watching kids ride bikes down the street. When my phone buzzed, it was an email From Dad. Subject line, if you'll let me. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Huh? I've written and deleted this 100 times. I still don't think I have the words, but I'll try anyway. I watched your graduation video. Lily showed it to me. I saw the way you looked at that empty seat. And I hated myself. I was selfish. I prioritized the image I wanted of myself over the reality of the daughter I had. That's something I'll have to live with. But I'm proud of you. I've always been, even if I never said it. Even if I showed it to someone else instead of you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But if you ever want to talk not as father and daughter, just as two people who share a past, I'd like to listen. If you'll let me. Dad, I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't moved, but because this time I wasn't reacting from a place of hurt. I was responding from a place of strength. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, closed my laptop, walked to my mirror, and looked at the woman standing there. For the first time in a long time, I truly saw her. Not a daughter trying to earn her father's love. Not a second choice, but a survivor of disappointment. A writer, a mentor, a force. Weeks passed, I didn't hear from Dad again, but I did hear from Lily. She sent me a video from her latest recital. She was dressed like a sunflower, twirling on stage at the end. She waved at the camera, and then the shot panned to the audience. Dad was clapping, not like a man fulfilling a duty, but like a father who genuinely adored her. I paused the video and I smiled. He had learned how to show up, even if not. For me, even if too late, that had to count for something. One evening, I hosted a reading at the school. My students shared their essays on the moment that changed me. A quiet boy named Ethan stood up. He trembled as he read, "I used to think no one saw me, that I could disappear and no one would notice. But Miss Mitchell saw me. She said my story mattered. And that made me want to stay." My throat closed. After the applause died down, he came up to me and said, "You clapped for me before I believed I deserved it." I blinked back tears and said, "So did someone once." That night, I walked home under a sky so clear it felt like the universe had nothing left to hide. I stood on the sidewalk outside my apartment and looked up at the stars. For the first time, I imagined Mom somewhere up there, not just watching, but celebrating. Because I finally understood what she meant when she said, not all love shows up the way you expect it to. Sometimes it doesn't come from a father. Sometimes it comes from a student, from a little sister. I went inside, pulled out my journal, and wrote, "I didn't get a standing ovation. I learned how to stand on my own. I didn't get his applause, but I gave myself a lifetime of it. And now when I think of that graduation seat, it's no longer empty. It's filled with everyone I've carried, everyone who's carried me, and every version of myself who waited for someone to clap. She's clapping now."